3 nights ago, I heard the world end. I am writing this from a warehouse rooftop on the outskirts of Harmon Falls. I do not know how much longer I can stay here. The water will run out in a day or two, and they are gathering in the streets below, more of them every hour. But before whatever happens next, I need someone to understand how this started. Because the outbreak did not begin with screaming in the streets or people running for their lives. It began with confused voices on a radio frequency. It began with officers who did not understand what they were seeing. The warning was there, crackling through the airwaves, and almost no one was listening. I was. Let me tell you what I heard. My name is Colin Webber. I am 34 years old, and I work from home as an IT technician. My apartment has a spare bedroom that I converted into a listening station years ago. Multiple scanners, a computer for logging interesting frequencies, a good set of headphones, and a chair I have spent more hours in than I care to admit. I monitor police frequencies, fire and EMS, air traffic control when I am in the mood, amateur ham bands, even CB channels sometimes. Most nights, it is background noise while I browse the internet or watch something on my laptop. The rhythm of emergency services becomes familiar after a while. You learn the voices, the codes, the cadence of routine. 3 nights ago was a Tuesday. It was around 11:30 at night, quiet and unremarkable. I was half listening to the Harmon Falls police frequency while reading articles online. The usual chatter filled the room. A traffic stop on 4th Street, a noise complaint at an apartment complex, an officer checking out for the night after a long shift. Nothing unusual, nothing worth paying attention to. Then Officer Kendrick called in. I recognized his voice immediately. He had been on the force for about 6 years, and I had heard him on hundreds of calls. He was calm, professional, the kind of officer who never sounded rattled, even when things got tense. That night, he reported a disturbance at a gas station on Route 9. A man acting erratically near the pumps, stumbling around, unresponsive to verbal commands. Kendrick said he was approaching to assess the situation. I figured it was a drunk or someone on drugs. Standard stuff. I kept one ear on the scanner while scrolling through my phone. Kendrick's next transmission made me put the phone down. He said something was wrong with the man's face. His skin looked grey, almost ashen, and his eyes were not tracking properly. Kendrick told dispatch he was going to attempt to make contact and requested backup as a precaution. Then I heard him shout. The transmission filled with noise. Struggling, grunting. Kendrick yelling for the man to get off him. I heard him scream that the man had bitten him, that he could not get him off, that he needed help right now. His voice was high and panicked, nothing like the calm officer I had listened to for years. Then static. Dispatcher Linda tried to raise him on the radio. I knew Linda's voice too, the night dispatcher who had worked the Harmon Falls frequency for as long as I could remember. She was professional, unflappable, the kind of voice that kept officers calm during the worst calls. She called Kendrick's unit number 3 times. No response. She dispatched Officer Mosley to his location and asked any nearby units to respond. I sat up straighter in my chair. This was not routine anymore. Over the next 20 minutes, 3 more officers reported similar incidents from different parts of the city. A woman attacking her husband in a grocery store parking lot. A group of people walking directly into traffic on the highway, causing a multi-vehicle pileup. Someone trying to break into a house by smashing through a window with their bare hands, ignoring the glass, tearing their flesh apart. Every report shared the same details. The attackers were unresponsive to commands. They moved strangely, jerking and stumbling, but somehow fast. They bit. I started monitoring multiple frequencies simultaneously. Fire department, EMS, the neighboring county sheriff. All of them were lighting up with calls that made no sense. Structure fires with no apparent cause, ambulances being attacked at scenes, patients turning violent after being pronounced dead. That last one made my stomach drop. By midnight, the radio traffic had intensified beyond anything I had ever heard. What started as isolated incidents became a flood that overwhelmed every channel. Dispatcher Linda's voice grew more strained with each transmission. Officers were calling for backup, but there was no backup to send. Every unit in the city was already responding to something. Around 12:30, Officer Mosley reached Kendrick's location. His transmission started calm, the way officers are trained to report. He said he had arrived at the gas station and found Kendrick on the ground near Pump 3. Kendrick was not moving. There was a lot of blood. The man who had attacked him was still there, crawling across the pavement despite what looked like fatal injuries. Mosley said the man had been shot at least twice by Kendrick before he went down, but he was still moving. Mosley drew his weapon and ordered the man to stop. The man kept crawling toward him. Mosley fired 3 shots. I heard each one through the radio, sharp cracks that made me flinch. He reported that the subject was still moving, that he was still coming. Then Mosley started screaming. The transmission dissolved into chaos. I heard him firing more rounds, heard something wet and horrible in the background, heard him calling for help that was not coming. Then his radio went silent. Linda called for him over and over. Her voice cracked for the first time. She was pleading now, begging him to respond, begging anyone to respond to his location. No one did. I switched to the fire department frequency. Captain Briggs was trying to coordinate response to multiple structure fires that had broken out across the city. His crews were stretched thin, and he was getting reports that made no sense. Firefighters being attacked by people at the scenes, burn victims who should have been dead getting up and walking. One engine company went silent in the middle of a transmission and never came back. On the EMS frequency, I heard a paramedic describing a body bag moving in the back of his ambulance. He was shouting at his partner to pull over, to get out of the vehicle. The transmission ended with a crash, and then nothing. I got up and went to my window. From my 5th floor apartment, I could see the glow of fires on the horizon. Orange light flickering between buildings, spreading, multiplying. Car alarms were going off throughout the neighborhood, a chorus of electronic wailing that never stopped. Down in the street, I could see people running, not jogging, not hurrying, running like something was chasing them. I went back to my radios. I switched to the CB frequencies, hoping someone outside the city might have information. Channel 19 had a trucker, his voice shaking so badly I could barely understand him. He said the highway was a war zone, overturned vehicles everywhere, people attacking each other in the road, things walking around that should not be walking. He said he saw a state trooper get pulled out of his cruiser and torn apart by a group of them. He said he was not stopping for anything, not for anyone, not until he was 100 miles away. His voice faded as he drove out of range. I never heard him again. Around 2 in the morning, I heard pounding on my apartment door. My first instinct was to stay quiet. Keep listening. Do not get involved. But then I heard a voice, a woman's voice, terrified and desperate, begging someone to help her. I opened the door. Her name was Denise Hartley. She lived 2 floors below me, apartment 315. I had seen her in the hallway a few times, but never really talked to her. She was in her pajamas, barefoot, shaking so hard she could barely stand. She told me something had come into her apartment, her roommate, but it was not her roommate anymore. She barely escaped. She ran up the stairs and started knocking on every door, but no one else answered. I looked back at my listening station. The radios were still crackling with voices, still full of screaming and static and silence. I could keep listening. I could hear every moment of the city dying, document it all, understand exactly what was happening. Or I could help this woman. I told Denise to come inside. I started packing a bag. While I gathered supplies, the radios kept broadcasting. Linda's voice came through one more time. She was not calm anymore. She was crying, pleading with any officers to respond, saying they were inside the building. The police station itself was under attack. Her last transmission was broken, fragmented, something about the doors not holding. Then dead air. I turned off the scanner. I had heard enough. Denise and I decided to head for the parking garage. My car was on the 2nd level, and if we could get to it, we could get out of the city. We moved into the hallway, which was empty but flickering with unstable lights. From behind closed doors, we could hear sounds, screaming, crashing. That low, groaning noise I had first heard through Officer Mosley's radio, now coming from inside apartments where people I had passed in the hall for years were dying or becoming something else. We took the stairs. On the 4th floor landing, we found a body. Mr. Abrams from apartment 412. I recognized his bathrobe. His throat had been torn out, and blood pooled beneath him on the concrete. We stepped around him as carefully as we could. His hand grabbed Denise's ankle. She screamed. I kicked at his arm until he let go, and we ran down the remaining flights without looking back. The lobby was worse than I expected. The front doors had been shattered, glass scattered across the tile floor. I could see bodies outside on the sidewalk, some of them moving. Gus, the building superintendent, was standing near the mailboxes. I had known Gus for 5 years. He always complained about his back and talked too much about his daughter's soccer games. He was not Gus anymore. His head turned toward us with a wet, cracking sound, rotating too far. His neck clearly broken, but somehow still functional. His eyes were milky and unfocused, but they found us. He started moving in our direction. That jerking stumble I had heard described so many times on the radio. We ran for the parking garage entrance. Inside the garage, we found Jerome Walsh, hiding behind a concrete pillar. He was maybe 60 years old, with grey hair and a tire iron clutched in both hands. He told us the streets were worse, that he had tried to drive out and barely made it back. The roads were blocked with crashed cars and wandering infected, The parking garage was the only place he could find to hide. The three of us needed another way out. The garage had 2 exits. The main ramp led to the street, but through the opening, I could see infected wandering past, drawn by car alarms and distant screams. The service door led to an alley behind the building. It was our only option. My car was on the 2nd level. We moved between vehicles, staying low, trying not to make any sound. Jerome's breathing was too loud, ragged, and wheezing, and I had to keep signaling him to stay quiet. We reached my car without incident, but when I pulled my keys from my pocket, they jangled against each other, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. Something in the garage shifted. Footsteps, more than one set. 3 of them emerged from behind a van about 30 feet away. They were fast, faster than the shambling figures I had seen through the window. They moved with a horrible, lurching speed, closing the distance before I could fully process what was happening. I got the car unlocked and everyone inside just as the first one slammed against my window. The glass cracked in a spider web pattern, but held. Denise was screaming. Jerome was praying. I started the engine and floored it towards the service ramp. We burst out of the garage into the alley. It was narrow, cluttered with dumpsters and trash bags and debris. I navigated around obstacles while Denise shouted directions from the passenger seat. An infected threw itself onto the hood of the car, clawing at the windshield, its face pressed against the glass inches from mine. I could see its teeth, broken and bloody, snapping at nothing. I swerved hard and it rolled off, disappearing into the darkness behind us. The city was unrecognizable. Every street we turned onto showed new horrors. Buildings on fire, cars overturned and burning, bodies in the road, some still, some crawling toward the sound of our engine. I drove toward the highway, hoping to get out of the urban center, hoping the roads would be clearer once we left downtown behind. That is when Jerome told us he had been bitten. He said it quietly, almost apologetically. It happened in the lobby when he first tried to leave. One of them grabbed his arm before he could get away. He did not want to say anything because he did not want to be left behind. He thought maybe it would not matter. Maybe he would be different. Denise started screaming at me to stop the car, to make him get out. She was crying and hitting the back of my seat, demanding I do something. I kept driving. I did not know what else to do. Jerome was getting worse by the minute, sweating through his clothes, shaking. His eyes were going glassy, losing focus, drifting in a way that was not quite human anymore. I pulled over near a highway on-ramp. The road ahead was clogged with abandoned vehicles, a graveyard of cars that would never move again. Behind us, the city burned against the night sky. I told Jerome he had to get out. He did not argue. He did not beg or plead or try to convince me he would be okay. He just nodded, opened the door, and stepped out onto the highway. He stood there for a moment, looking back at us, the tire iron still in his hand. Then he turned and walked into the darkness between the abandoned cars. I do not know what happened to him after that. I did not stay to find out. Denise and I drove until the car ran out of gas. We were on the outskirts of the city by then, near an industrial area full of warehouses and empty lots. We found a building with roof access and climbed up, hoping height would keep us safe from whatever was wandering the streets below. From the rooftop, we could see Harmon Falls in the distance. The entire skyline was glowing orange. Fires burning out of control with no one left to fight them. No sirens, no helicopters, no sounds of rescue or response. Just the distant crackle of flames and that ever-present groaning from the streets below. I brought a portable scanner in my bag. I turned it on, hoping for news, for information, for anything that might tell us where to go or what to do. Most frequencies were dead. One channel carried an automated emergency broadcast on an endless loop, a recorded voice telling people to shelter in place and await further instructions. Another channel had a single transmission, repeating over and over, a weak and broken voice, asking if anyone was there. I did not respond. I could not be sure the voice was still human. That was 3 nights ago. Denise is asleep now, curled up against an air conditioning unit, exhausted beyond words. I have been keeping watch, listening to the scanner, hoping to hear something that sounds like help. So far, nothing. The frequencies are almost entirely silent now. Whatever organized response existed has collapsed. Whoever was left to send transmissions has either escaped or stopped transmitting. The infected have been gathering in the streets below our building. I counted over 200 of them this morning, standing motionless, swaying slightly, their heads tilted upward like they know we are here. They do not try to get into the building. They just wait. I do not know what they are waiting for. I keep thinking about the voices I heard that night. Officer Kendrick, who was just responding to a routine disturbance call. Officer Mosley, who went to help his partner and never came back. Dispatcher Linda, whose calm professional voice cracked and broke and finally went silent. Captain Briggs, trying to coordinate a response to something no one understood. The trucker on the CB, driving into the darkness, hoping distance would save him. All those voices, all those people. Most of them are probably dead now, or worse than dead. I spent 15 years listening to police radios. I heard thousands of calls, thousands of emergencies, thousands of people on the worst nights of their lives. I thought I understood what those frequencies represented. The thin line between order and chaos. The people who ran toward danger so everyone else could run away. I did not understand anything. The outbreak started on the radio before it started in the streets. By the time most people looked out their windows and saw what was happening, the emergency services had already collapsed. The warning was there, crackling through every frequency, and almost no one was paying attention. I was paying attention, and I still barely made it out. If you are reading this, I do not know what has happened in your city. Maybe the outbreak is contained. Maybe help arrived in time. Maybe you are somewhere safe, reading this as a curiosity, a story about something that happened far away to people you will never meet. Or maybe you are hearing the same things I heard. Confused reports, officers who do not understand what they are seeing, dispatchers whose voices are starting to crack. If that is the case, do not wait. Do not tell yourself it will be handled. Do not assume someone else will take care of it. Run. Get out of the city while the roads are still passable. Get somewhere defensible while you still have time. Do not trust evacuation points or shelters or anyone who tells you help is on the way. By the time you see them coming, it is already too late. I can hear something on the scanner right now, a faint signal, barely audible through the static. It might be survivors. It might be a rescue operation. It might be nothing at all, just the last gasp of a radio tower running on backup power. I'm going to wake Denise. We are going to try to find the source of that signal. It is probably a mistake. It is probably going to get us killed. But staying on this rooftop means dying slowly instead of dying fast. And I am not ready to give up yet. If you have a radio, turn it on. Listen to your local emergency channels. Pay attention to the voices and what they are saying. If you start hearing what I heard 3 nights ago, confused reports, officers going silent, dispatchers losing control, do not wait to see it for yourself. The dead are patient. They do not get tired. They do not stop. You cannot afford to wait. Neither can I.